What is the meaning of this? Those documents belong to me.
Until the estate is settled, sir, they remain in my custody.
The notification sound from Olivia's phone cut through our morning silence like a digital dagger. She was in the shower, and there it sat on our granite kitchen counter, screen glowing with another message from G. I'd been pretending not to notice these messages for weeks, but today something snapped inside me. I picked up the phone. No password. She never bothered with one around me. Trust, she called it. I called it carelessness. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The message read, "Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. Tonight can't come soon enough." My coffee mug hit the counter harder than I intended. Benjamin Carter, 48 years old, owner of a cybersecurity firm that protected half of Boston's financial district, and I couldn't even secure my own marriage from some jackass named Grant. I scrolled up through their conversation, my stomach churning with each flirtatious exchange. 3 months of messages. 3 months of my wife planning secret meetings while I worked 16-hour days building our future. "Babe, have you seen my phone?" Olivia's voice drifted from the bedroom, accompanied by the rustle of expensive fabric. She always dressed like she was heading to a magazine shoot, even for her PR job. "Kitchen counter," I called back, quickly placing the phone where I'd found it. I needed time to think, to plan. In my business, you don't react to threats. You analyze them, understand them, then neutralize them completely. Olivia appeared in the doorway, her auburn hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. At 39, she still turned heads everywhere we went. I used to feel proud walking beside her. Now I wondered how many of those heads belonged to men she was texting. "You're up early," she said, checking her phone. I watched her face carefully, but she was a professional communicator. No tells, no guilt, just that practiced smile she wore like armor. "Couldn't sleep. Big presentation today." It wasn't entirely a lie. My company was pitching a major security contract to the city's largest PR firm. Ironically, the same firm where Olivia worked. "Oh, right. The Morrison account. Good luck with that." She kissed my cheek, her perfume lingering as she grabbed her purse. "I'll be late tonight. Client dinner." Client dinner. Right. "Which client?" I asked casually, sipping my coffee. "The Henderson Group. You know, the pharmaceutical merger we're handling." She didn't miss a beat, but I knew her tells. When Olivia lied, she touched her earring. Her fingers found the small diamond stud as she spoke. "Have fun," I said. "I'll probably work late too." After she left, I sat in our penthouse apartment, looking out at the Boston skyline. 15 years of marriage, and it had come to this. My wife sneaking around with someone named Grant while I played the oblivious husband. But I wasn't oblivious anymore. I called Simon, my oldest friend, and the best digital forensics expert on the East Coast. We'd built our companies together, shared everything from college hangovers to business loans. If anyone could help me figure out who Grant was and what exactly my wife was up to, it was Simon. "Ben, it's 7 a.m. This better be important." "Close enough. I need your help with something personal." 20 minutes later, Simon sat in my office, his gray hair disheveled and his expression serious as he listened to my story. At 51, he'd seen enough corporate espionage and digital betrayal to know where this was heading. "You want me to investigate your own wife?" "I want to know the truth. All of it." Simon leaned back in his chair. "Ben, sometimes the truth is worse than the mystery." "I'm a cybersecurity expert, Simon. I deal with threats for a living. I can handle whatever we find." He pulled out his laptop. "Give me her phone number, email, anything you know about this Grant character." "Grant Turner. He's a senior executive at Morrison & Associates, the same firm we're pitching today." Simon's fingers froze over the keyboard. "The same firm where Olivia works?" "Yeah, interesting coincidence, right?" In our line of work, there are no coincidences. Simon's expression darkened. Ben, if this guy works at the same company you're pitching and he's involved with your wife, this could be bigger than just an affair. The pieces started clicking together in my mind like a malicious code executing its program. Morrison and Associates handled PR for some of the biggest corporations in New England. They'd know which companies were vulnerable, which ones were looking for security upgrades, which ones had deep pockets and shallow defenses. Pull everything you can find on Grant Turner, I said. Financial records, employment history, social media, parking tickets, everything. This is going to take a few hours. What are you going to do? I looked at my watch. The Morrison presentation was in 3 hours. I'm going to meet Grant Turner face to face. The Morrison and Associates building rose 37 floors above downtown Boston, all glass and steel ambition. I'd been here before for preliminary meetings, but today felt different. Today I wasn't just selling security services. I was gathering intelligence on the man sleeping with my wife. The conference room on the 28th floor offered a panoramic view of the harbor. Around the polished table sat 6 executives, including a man I immediately recognized from Olivia's Instagram photos, though she'd always claimed he was just a colleague. Grant Turner looked exactly like central casting would order for successful executive having an affair. Mid-40s, expensive suit, perfect smile, and the kind of confidence that came from never facing real consequences. He stood when I entered, extending his hand like we were old friends. Mr. Carter, Grant Turner, Senior Vice President, I've heard so much about you. I'll bet you have, I thought, shaking his hand firmly. All good things, I hope. Your reputation precedes you, though I have to admit I'm curious about something. His smile took on a predatory edge. How does someone in the cybersecurity business end up married to one of our best PR managers? Seems like an unusual match. The room went quiet. This wasn't standard business small talk, and everyone knew it. You know Olivia? I kept my voice level, professional. Oh, we work very closely together, very closely. The emphasis was subtle but unmistakable. She's quite talented. I felt my jaw clench. This bastard was taunting me in front of his colleagues, probably getting off on the power play. But I'd dealt with corporate bullies before. She is talented, I agreed. She's also very good at reading people, understanding their weaknesses, exploiting vulnerabilities. It's what makes her so effective in PR. Grant's smile faltered slightly. Interesting way to describe your wife. I describe things as I see them. In my business, we call it threat assessment. The presentation went smoothly after that. My team delivered our pitch flawlessly, outlining how we could protect Morrison and Associates from the kind of data breaches that had destroyed other firms. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was offering to protect them from threats while one of their executives was actively threatening my marriage. As we packed up, Grant approached me again. Impressive presentation, Ben. Can I call you Ben? Mr. Carter works fine. Of course. I'm just curious. With all your expertise in digital security, do you ever worry about security at home? Personal security? The threat was barely veiled. I looked at him for a long moment, letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. I've learned that the biggest security threats usually come from inside the system, I said finally. Trusted users who abuse their access privileges. But here's the thing about security breaches, Grant. They always leave traces. And I'm very good at following traces. His confident facade cracked just enough for me to see the uncertainty underneath. Well, he said, forcing his smile back into place. I hope we'll be working together soon. Oh, I'm sure we will. Back at my office, Simon had news. Grant Turner is dirty, Ben, really dirty. I closed my office door and sat down. How dirty? He's been skimming money from client accounts for 2 years. Small amounts, but consistent. He's also been selling confidential client information to competitors. I found encrypted files on his personal cloud storage that contain PR strategies, merger plans, executive communications, stuff that could be worth millions to the right buyers. What about Olivia? Simon's expression grew grim. She's been helping him. Email chains going back 6 months, discussing which clients have the most valuable information, when security audits are scheduled, how to access files without leaving digital footprints. Ben, she's been using her position to help him steal from her own company. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. It was one thing to suspect an affair, but this was professional sabotage. My wife hadn't just cheated on our marriage, she'd become a corporate criminal. There's more, Simon continued. I found communications suggesting they're planning something big, a major score that would set them up financially. And Ben, I think it involves your company. What do you mean? Grant has been asking Olivia about your client list, your security protocols, your business practices. I think they're planning to use information about your company to either blackmail your clients or sell their data to competitors. I stared out my office window at the city below. Somewhere out there, my wife was probably planning her evening with Grant, maybe even planning how to destroy the business I'd spent 15 years building. What do you want to do? Simon asked. I turned back to face him, and I could see in his expression that he recognized the look in my eyes. It was the same look I got when we were tracking down hackers who thought they were smarter than us. I want to destroy them both, completely. Ben, they want to play games with digital security? Fine. But they picked the wrong target. Grant Turner has no idea what he's dealing with, and Olivia's about to learn that her husband isn't as ordinary as she thinks. Simon nodded slowly. What's the first move? I smiled, but there was nothing warm about it. We're going to give them exactly what they want. We're going to let them think they're winning, right up until the moment we take everything away from them. The game had begun, and I intended to win. That evening, I sat in my car across from the Harbor View restaurant, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as my wife laughed at something Grant Turner was saying. They weren't trying to hide anymore. Grant's hand rested possessively on Olivia's lower back as they waited for their table. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. Client dinner running late. Don't wait up. I typed back, no problem. Love you. The lie came easily now. I'd spent the afternoon with Simon, setting up surveillance protocols that would make the NSA jealous. Grant Turner's digital life was now an open book to us. Every email, every phone call, every financial transaction. What we'd discovered in just a few hours was staggering. Grant wasn't just stealing from Morrison and Associates. He was running a full-scale corporate espionage operation, selling secrets to competitors across multiple industries. And Olivia wasn't just helping him. She was his inside source for at least a dozen major accounts. But the most damning discovery was a series of encrypted messages discussing their exit strategy. They were planning to steal Morrison's entire client database, sell it to the highest bidder, and disappear together. The estimated value of that information? $23 million. My phone rang. Simon. They just left the restaurant, he said, heading toward the Marriott downtown. Copy that. I started my car. Any word on the files I asked you to prepare? Ready to deploy on your command. Are you sure about this, Ben? Once we start, there's no going back. I watched Grant's BMW pull out of the restaurant parking lot, Olivia's hand on his thigh. I'm sure. The Marriott's parking garage was dimly lit, perfect for what I had planned. I parked 2 levels up and waited. 15 minutes later, Grant's car appeared. I watched them stumble toward the elevator, hands all over each other like teenagers. Time for Phase 1. I slipped down to Grant's car and placed a small device under the rear bumper, a GPS tracker that would also monitor his phone calls thanks to some modifications Simon had made. Then I left a small gift on his windshield, one of my business cards with a simple message written on the back. I see you. Let him think about that. The next morning, I was in my office early, reviewing the intelligence Simon had gathered overnight. Grant had made 17 phone calls from the hotel room, including 3 to overseas numbers that traced back to corporate intelligence brokers. He was definitely planning something big. Rhea, my office manager, knocked on my door. At 55, she'd been with me since I started the company, and she could read my moods better than anyone. "You look like someone stole your lunch money," she said, setting a coffee on my desk. Something like that. "Want to talk about it?" Rhea had been through 2 messy divorces herself. If anyone would understand what I was dealing with, it was her. "Olivia's having an affair." Rhea sat down heavily. "Oh, Ben, I'm sorry. Are you sure?" "Completely sure. And it's worse than just an affair. She's involved in corporate espionage with this guy. They're stealing from her own company." "What are you going to do?" I looked at her for a long moment. Rhea had always been loyal, discreet, and surprisingly resourceful when needed. "I'm going to need your help with something. Something that might get complicated." "How complicated?" "The kind where we might need to bend a few rules." Rhea's eyes lit up with interest. "I haven't bent rules in years. This sounds fun." Over the next hour, I laid out my plan. Rhea would use her contacts in the business community to spread carefully crafted rumors about Grant Turner's financial irregularities. Nothing actionable, nothing that could be traced back to us, just whispers that would make people start asking questions. Meanwhile, Simon would continue monitoring their communications, and I would begin the delicate process of gathering evidence that could be used to destroy them both professionally. "What about Olivia?" Rhea asked. "She's your wife." She stopped being my wife the moment she decided to betray everything we built together. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Eloise Hendricks, Olivia's best friend and the head of HR at Morrison & Associates, stood in my office doorway looking nervous. "Ben, I hope you don't mind me stopping by unannounced." "Not at all. What can I do for you?" Eloise was an attractive woman in her early 40s, divorced, with a reputation for being both ambitious and ruthless. She and Olivia had been friends since college, though I'd always suspected their friendship was more competitive than supportive. "I wanted to talk to you about the Morrison account. I heard your presentation went very well. We're optimistic about our chances." She closed the door behind her and sat down across from my desk. "Ben, I'm going to be direct with you. There are some concerns about potential conflicts of interest." "What kind of concerns?" "Well, with Olivia working at Morrison and you bidding on our security contract, some people are worried about the appearance of impropriety." I leaned back in my chair. "Are you suggesting that my wife would compromise her professional ethics to help my business?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying that appearances matter in our business." There was something else going on here. Eloise was fishing for information, but I wasn't sure what kind. "Eloise, let me ask you something. How well do you know Grant Turner?" Her expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Grant? He's a colleague. Why?" He seemed very interested in my personal life during the presentation, specifically my marriage to Olivia. "Grant can be forward sometimes." "Is that what you call it?" She stood up abruptly. "Ben, I should go. I just wanted to make sure there wouldn't be any complications with the contract." "There won't be any complications from my end." After she left, I called Simon. "I just had an interesting visit from Eloise Hendricks. I think she knows about Olivia and Grant." "That could be useful. Want me to dig into her background?" "Do it. And Simon? I want to accelerate our timeline. I'm tired of playing defense." That evening, I decided to confront Olivia directly. She was in our bedroom, getting ready for another client dinner, when I walked in. "How was work today?" I asked casually. "Busy. The Henderson account is keeping everyone late." "I thought you finished the Henderson presentation last week." She paused, mascara wand halfway to her eye. "We did, but they want revisions." "What kind of revisions?" "Ben, why all the questions? You never ask about my work." Maybe I should pay more attention to what my wife does all day. She turned to face me fully. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm curious about how you spend your time. For instance, I'm curious about your relationship with Grant Turner. The color drained from her face. My relationship? Ben, Grant is a colleague. A colleague you have dinner with 3 times a week? Those are business dinners. At the Marriott? She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew. Ben, I don't know what you think you know, but I know you're lying to me. I know you're having an affair with Grant Turner, and I know you're helping him steal from your own company. She sat down on the bed, her hands shaking. Ben, please let me explain. Explain what? Explain how you decided our marriage was worth less than whatever Grant Turner promised you? Explain how you decided to betray the company that gave you a career? Or explain how you thought you could outsmart someone who makes a living catching people who steal digital information? Tears started running down her cheeks. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Grant said he loved me. He said we could be together, that we could have a real future. But he needed money, and you decided to help him steal it. It wasn't supposed to hurt anyone. The information we were selling, it wasn't going to damage the clients. It was just market research, competitive intelligence. $23 million worth of competitive intelligence? Her face went white. How do you know about your exit strategy? Olivia, I'm a cybersecurity expert. Did you really think you could run a digital espionage operation without me finding out? She stood up, anger replacing the tears. So what now, Ben? Are you going to turn me in, destroy my career, ruin my life? I haven't decided yet. What do you want? I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and realized I was staring at a stranger. The woman I'd married 15 years ago would never have done this. This person was someone else entirely. I want you to understand something, Olivia. You picked the wrong target. You and Grant thought you were so clever, so careful, but you made one critical mistake. What mistake? You forgot that I don't just catch hackers and corporate spies for other people. Sometimes, I am the hacker. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Olivia? That client dinner you're going to tonight? You might want to reconsider. Grant's going to be having a very bad evening. I left her standing there, staring after me with a mixture of fear and confusion on her face. It was time for Grant Turner to learn what happened when you messed with the wrong man's life. Grant Turner's BMW was parked in the Morrison & Associates executive garage when I arrived at 8 p.m. According to the GPS tracker, he'd been there for 2 hours. Long enough to get comfortable, to think he was safe. He was wrong. Simon's voice crackled through my earpiece. Security cameras are looped. You've got a 15-minute window before the next guard rotation. I made my way to the 28th floor using Olivia's access card. Amazing how trusting people became when they thought they held all the advantages. The Morrison offices were dark except for the glow coming from Grant's corner office. Through the glass walls, I could see him at his computer, probably working on another data theft scheme. His jacket was draped over his chair, his tie loosened. He looked relaxed, confident. That was about to change. I knocked on his office door and watched his head snap up. When he saw me, his expression shifted from surprise to annoyance to something that might have been fear. Ben Carter, what are you doing here? We need to talk, Grant. He glanced at his computer screen, then back at me. It's after hours. This isn't appropriate. Neither is stealing from your own company, but that hasn't stopped you. I walked into his office uninvited and closed the door behind me. Grant stood up, trying to use his height advantage to intimidate me. I don't know what you think you know. I know everything, Grant. The offshore accounts, the encrypted files, the $23 million exit strategy. I know about the corporate clients you've been selling out, and I know about my wife. His face went pale, but he tried to maintain his composure. Ben, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding was thinking you could outsmart me. I pulled out my phone and played an audio recording, Grant's voice, crystal clear, discussing the sale of confidential client information to a competitor in Germany. That's not admissible. You can't record people without their consent. I'm not planning to use it in court, Grant. I'm planning to use it to destroy your life. He sat down heavily in his chair. What do you want? I want you to understand the situation you're in. Right now, I have enough evidence to send you to prison for corporate espionage, wire fraud, and conspiracy. I also have enough evidence to destroy Morrison and Associates' reputation and cost them hundreds of millions in lawsuits. You can't prove anything. I smiled and pulled out a tablet, showing him screenshots of his encrypted files, bank records, and email chains with Olivia. Grant, I've been tracking your digital footprint for weeks. I know about every transaction, every communication, every plan you've made. I know you've been using Olivia to access client files she shouldn't have access to. I know you've been selling strategic information to competitors in at least 6 different industries. And I know you're planning to disappear with Morrison's entire client database next month. He stared at the evidence, his confident facade crumbling completely. How did you... I'm very good at my job, Grant. The question is, what are you going to do now that you know I know? He looked up at me with desperation in his eyes. Ben, we can work something out. I can cut you in. There's enough money for all of us. You think I want your dirty money? Then what do you want? I leaned forward, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I want you to suffer the way you've made me suffer. I want you to lose everything you think matters, and I want you to know that it was me who took it all away. Ben, please. Here's what's going to happen, Grant. You're going to transfer every penny you've stolen back to Morrison's accounts. You're going to delete every piece of stolen information you have, and you're going to end your relationship with my wife. And if I don't? Then tomorrow morning, copies of everything I've found go to the FBI, the SEC, Morrison's board of directors, and every major news outlet in Boston. Your face will be on the front page of the Globe by noon. Grant was quiet for a long moment, considering his options. Finally, he looked up at me. If I do what you want, what guarantee do I have that you won't destroy me anyway? You don't have any guarantee, Grant. That's the beauty of it. From now on, you live or die based on my goodwill. And right now, my goodwill is in very short supply. He nodded slowly. Okay. I'll transfer the money back. I'll delete the files. Good. But Grant, if you think this is over, you're mistaken. This is just the beginning. I stood up to leave, then turned back. Oh, and Grant, stay away from my wife, because if you don't, the next conversation we have won't be nearly as civilized. I left him sitting there, staring at his computer screen like it might explode. In a way, it had. The next morning, I was in my office early, reviewing the overnight intelligence reports Simon had compiled. Grant had indeed transferred the stolen money back to Morrison's accounts, all $847,000 of it. He'd also deleted most of the encrypted files from his personal servers. But he hadn't deleted everything, and he definitely hadn't stayed away from Olivia. According to our surveillance, they'd met at a different hotel after our conversation, where they'd spent 3 hours planning their next move. Apparently, Grant had convinced Olivia that I was bluffing, that I wouldn't actually destroy her career along with his. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Rhea knocked on my door. Ben, there's someone here to see you. Janet Morrison from Morrison and Associates. Janet Morrison was the niece of the firm's founder and a junior account executive. She was also, according to Simon's research, Grant Turner's ex-girlfriend, a relationship that had ended badly 6 months ago. Send her in. Janet was a petite blonde in her late 20s, professionally dressed but clearly nervous. She sat down across from my desk and fidgeted with her purse. "Mr. Carter, thank you for seeing me. I have some information I think you might find useful." "What kind of information?" "Information about Grant Turner and your wife." I kept my expression neutral. "I'm listening." "Grant and I dated for 8 months. He used me to get access to client files, to learn about account strategies, to find out which companies were vulnerable to takeovers or mergers. When I found out what he was doing, I broke up with him." "When was this?" 6 months ago, right around the time he started getting close to Olivia." "What makes you think I'd be interested in this?" Janet looked me directly in the eyes. "Because Grant told me he was going to destroy your marriage and your business. He said it would be fun to watch someone like you, someone he called ordinary, lose everything to someone like him." I felt anger building in my chest, but I kept my voice calm. "What exactly did he tell you?" "He said Olivia was just a means to an end, that she was useful for getting information about your company and your clients, but that he'd get rid of her once he had what he needed. He called her pathetic for thinking he actually cared about her." This was interesting. Grant was playing Olivia just as much as she was betraying me. "Why are you telling me this, Janet?" "Because Grant Turner is a predator. He destroys people for fun, and he's very good at it. But you're not ordinary, are you, Mr. Carter?" I smiled slightly. "What makes you say that?" "Because Grant is scared of you. Really scared. Yesterday he called me, panicking, asking if I knew anything about corporate security, about how to hide digital evidence. He's never been scared of anyone before." "What did you tell him?" "I told him he should be scared. I told him he'd finally picked on someone who could fight back." Janet reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. "This contains copies of emails Grant sent me when we were dating. Emails where he brags about his various schemes, talks about which Morrison clients he's targeting, discusses his plans to steal the client database. There's also a recording of a conversation where he talks about using Olivia to get to you." I took the flash drive. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because I want to watch Grant Turner burn, and because I think you're the one who can make it happen." After Janet left, I called Simon. "We just got a gift from Grant's ex-girlfriend. This changes everything." "How so?" "We now have evidence from multiple sources, including someone inside Morrison who's willing to testify about Grant's activities. We can move to the final phase." "What's the final phase?" I looked out my office window at the city below, thinking about Grant Turner sitting in his corner office, probably feeling safe, probably planning his next move against me. "We're going to give Grant Turner exactly what he deserves, and we're going to do it in front of everyone who matters." "When?" "Tomorrow night. Morrison and Associates is having their annual client appreciation gala. 500 of Boston's most influential business leaders will be there, including every major client Grant has been stealing from." "Ben, what are you planning?" "I'm planning to end this war the way all wars should end, with the complete and total destruction of my enemies." The gala was going to be very interesting. The Morrison and Associates annual gala was held at the Four Seasons in a ballroom that cost more per night than most people made in a month. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best tuxedo and carrying a leather briefcase that contained the end of Grant Turner's world. Olivia was already there, stunning in a black evening gown, playing the role of the perfect corporate wife. She was standing near the bar with Grant, both of them laughing at something one of the clients had said. They looked comfortable, confident, like they owned the room. They had no idea what was coming. I made my way through the crowd, shaking hands with clients and colleagues, playing the part of the successful businessman enjoying a social evening. Several people congratulated me on winning the Morrison security contract. Apparently, the decision had been made that afternoon. "Ben!" Eloise Hendricks appeared at my elbow, wearing a silver dress that probably cost more than my car payment. "I'm so glad you could make it, and congratulations on the contract." "Thank you. It's going to be an interesting partnership. I'm sure it will be. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Ben, I was wondering if we could talk privately later about some concerns I have regarding the contract. What kind of concerns? Personnel concerns. There are some people at Morrison who might not be trustworthy. I looked at her carefully. Eloise was fishing again, but this time I thought I understood what she was after. Are you talking about anyone specific? Well, there have been some irregularities, financial irregularities, and some questions about information security. Eloise, are you trying to tell me something about Grant Turner? Her eyes widened slightly. What makes you ask about Grant? Because I know what he's been doing. The question is, what do you know? She glanced around nervously, then pulled me toward a quieter corner of the room. Ben, Grant has been stealing from the company. I've known for months, but I couldn't prove it. And recently, I've started to suspect that Olivia might be involved. What gave you that idea? She's been accessing client files she has no business looking at, files for accounts she doesn't work on, and she's been staying late, using Grant's computer access codes. I nodded thoughtfully. Eloise, what would you say if I told you I could prove everything Grant has been doing? I'd say that would solve a lot of problems. And what if I told you that proof might implicate other people, people you care about? She looked toward the bar, where Olivia was still laughing with Grant and the clients. Ben, I've known Olivia since college. She's my best friend. But if she's involved in corporate espionage, I can't protect her from that. Good. Because in about 10 minutes, everyone in this room is going to know exactly what Grant Turner and my wife have been doing. Eloise stared at me. What are you planning? Justice. I excused myself and made my way to the small stage at the front of the ballroom, where Morrison's CEO, Richard Morrison, was preparing to give his annual address to the clients. Richard, I said, approaching him with my briefcase. I need to speak with you privately. It's urgent. Morrison was a distinguished man in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded respect. He'd built Morrison and Associates from nothing into one of the most successful PR firms in New England. Ben, congratulations on the contract. What's so urgent it can't wait until tomorrow? I opened my briefcase and handed him a folder containing printed copies of Grant's financial records, email chains with Olivia, and evidence of the corporate espionage operation. Richard, you have a serious problem. One of your senior executives has been stealing from the company and selling client information to competitors. The total damage is estimated at over $20 million. Morrison's face went white as he flipped through the documents. My God, Grant Turner? Grant Turner and my wife, Olivia Carter. They've been running this operation for almost a year. Ben, this is devastating. How did you find this? I'm a cybersecurity expert, Richard. It's what I do. Morrison looked toward the crowd, where Grant was still holding court with several major clients. What do you want me to do? I want you to let me address your clients. I want to tell them exactly how their confidential information has been compromised, and I want to do it in front of the man who stole it. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. If this information became public, it could destroy Morrison and Associates' reputation. But if it came out later, after a cover-up attempt, it would be even worse. You're asking me to destroy my own company. I'm asking you to save it. Richard, this is going to come out eventually. The question is whether you're the one who reveals it, or whether the FBI reveals it when they arrest Grant tomorrow morning. The FBI? I've already provided them with copies of everything. They're moving forward with charges, regardless of what happens tonight. Morrison closed the folder and looked at me with something that might have been respect. You're not just destroying Grant Turner, are you? You're destroying your own wife. My wife destroyed herself the moment she decided to betray everything we built together. Morrison nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Just introduce me. Tell them I have important information about corporate security. Let me handle the rest. 20 minutes later, I stood on the stage looking out at 500 of Boston's most powerful business leaders. In the crowd, I could see Grant Turner standing near the bar, his face pale, but trying to maintain his composure. Olivia was beside him, her hand on his arm, both of them staring at me with growing horror. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began. "My name is Benjamin Carter, and I'm the owner of Carter Cybersecurity. Many of you are my clients, and all of you trust companies like Morrison & Associates with your most sensitive information." I paused, letting the silence build. "Tonight, I'm here to tell you that trust has been betrayed." A murmur ran through the crowd. I could see Grant starting to move toward the exit, but two men in dark suits, FBI agents Simon had contacted, blocked his path. For the past 11 months, a senior executive at Morrison & Associates has been stealing confidential client information and selling it to competitors. The estimated damage to affected companies is over $20 million. The murmur became a roar of angry voices. I held up my hand for silence. The executive responsible is Grant Turner, Senior Vice President of Client Relations. All eyes turned to Grant, who was now surrounded by FBI agents. His face was red with rage and humiliation. "Mr. Turner has been assisted in this operation by Morrison employee Olivia Carter, who used her access privileges to steal strategic information, merger plans, and competitive intelligence." I looked directly at Olivia, who was staring at me with tears streaming down her face. "Mrs. Carter is also my wife." The room erupted in chaos. Clients were shouting questions. Morrison executives were trying to restore order, and FBI agents were placing Grant Turner under arrest. But I wasn't finished. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand something. Corporate espionage isn't just about money. It's about trust. It's about the relationships that make business possible. When someone betrays that trust, they don't just steal information. They steal the foundation of everything we've built together." I could see Olivia pushing through the crowd, trying to reach me, her face desperate. "The good news is that Carter Cybersecurity has recovered all stolen information and identified every compromised account. Morrison & Associates has cooperated fully with our investigation, and they've taken immediate steps to prevent future breaches." Richard Morrison stepped up to the microphone beside me. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to personally apologize for this betrayal of your trust. Effective immediately, Morrison & Associates will be implementing the most comprehensive security protocols in the industry, managed by Carter Cybersecurity. We will also be providing full compensation for any damages resulting from the theft of your information." As Morrison continued his damage control speech, I stepped away from the microphone and made my way through the crowd. Olivia intercepted me near the exit. "Ben, please, we need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about, Olivia." "Ben, I'm sorry. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. We can work through this." I looked at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "Olivia, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose Grant Turner over our marriage. You chose money over integrity. You chose betrayal over trust. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions." "Ben, please. You want to know the really beautiful part of all this, Olivia? Grant never cared about you. He was using you to get to me, to destroy my business. He told his ex-girlfriend that you were pathetic for thinking he actually loved you." The color drained from her face. "That's not true. It's on tape, Olivia, just like everything else." I started to walk away, then turned back one last time. "Oh, and Olivia? You might want to call a lawyer. The FBI will probably want to talk to you tomorrow." I left her standing there in her expensive evening gown, surrounded by the wreckage of her career and her life. Outside the Four Seasons, Simon was waiting by my car. "How do you feel?" he asked. I looked back at the hotel, where the most powerful people in Boston were still trying to process what they'd just witnessed. "I feel like I just won the most important game of my life." "What happens now?" I smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a genuine smile. Now we go home. Grant Turner is going to prison, Olivia's career is over, and Morrison and Associates just became our biggest client. I'd say that's a pretty good night's work. As we drove through the Boston streets, I thought about the last 15 years of my marriage, about the trust I'd placed in someone who didn't deserve it, about the business I'd built and nearly lost. But mostly, I thought about how good it felt to win. Grant Turner had called me ordinary. He'd thought he could destroy my marriage and my business because I wasn't smart enough or ruthless enough to fight back. He'd been wrong about everything. 3 weeks after the gala, I was sitting in my office reviewing the contracts for our expanded relationship with Morrison and Associates when Rhea knocked on my door. "Ben, you have visitors. FBI agent Sarah Chen and Detective Mike Foster." I'd been expecting this visit. While Grant Turner was already in federal custody awaiting trial, the investigation into the corporate espionage ring was ongoing. Agent Chen was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who specialized in white-collar crime. Detective Foster was older, probably close to retirement, with the weathered look of someone who'd seen every kind of human betrayal. "Mr. Carter, thank you for meeting with us," Agent Chen said as they sat down. "We have some follow-up questions about the Turner investigation." "Of course. How can I help?" "We've been analyzing the evidence you provided, and we're impressed by the thoroughness of your investigation. Almost too thorough." Detective Foster leaned forward. "Ben, can I call you Ben? We need to understand exactly how you obtained some of this information. Some of the digital evidence suggests surveillance methods that might have crossed legal boundaries." I'd prepared for this question. "Gentlemen, everything I provided to you was obtained through legal means. Grant Turner and my wife were conducting their activities using unsecured communications, accessing company systems they had legitimate access to, and meeting in public places. I simply documented what they were already doing." "What about the GPS tracking on Turner's vehicle?" Agent Chen asked. "I placed a tracking device on a car that was parked in my condominium building's garage. Grant Turner was visiting my wife in my home. I had every right to monitor who was coming and going from my property." Detective Foster smiled slightly. "You've thought this through pretty carefully." "I'm a cybersecurity expert. I understand the legal implications of surveillance." "Fair enough," Agent Chen said. "What can you tell us about your wife's level of involvement?" This was the question I'd been dreading. Despite everything Olivia had done, part of me still felt protective of her. Olivia was definitely involved in accessing and copying client files. The evidence clearly shows she was providing Grant with information he shouldn't have had access to, but I believe she was manipulated. Grant Turner is very good at exploiting people's weaknesses. "Are you saying she was a victim?" "I'm saying she made bad choices, but I don't think she fully understood the scope of what Grant was doing." Agent Chen made notes in her file. "Mr. Carter, we appreciate your cooperation. The evidence you provided has been crucial to building our case against Turner." "What's going to happen to him?" "He's looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. Corporate espionage, wire fraud, conspiracy. He's facing multiple felony charges." After they left, I sat in my office thinking about Olivia. She'd been fired from Morrison and Associates the day after the gala, of course. Her career in public relations was effectively over. No company would hire someone who'd been involved in corporate espionage, but she wasn't facing criminal charges. Agent Chen had decided that while Olivia had clearly participated in the scheme, she'd been manipulated by Grant and wasn't the primary architect of the operation. I hadn't seen or spoken to Olivia since the night of the gala. She'd moved out of our penthouse and was staying with her sister in Cambridge. Our divorce lawyers were handling all communication. That afternoon, Simon stopped by my office with an update on the business impact of our recent publicity. "Ben, you're not going to believe this. We've received inquiries from 47 new potential clients since the gala. The Morrison case has made you famous in corporate security circles." "Famous for what? Destroying my own marriage?" "Famous for having the balls to expose corporate espionage even when it involved your own wife. People respect that kind of integrity." Simon sat down across from my desk. How are you handling all this, really? I'm fine, Simon. Better than fine, actually. Come on, Ben. Your marriage is over, your wife's career is destroyed, and you've become the poster child for corporate revenge. That's got to be affecting you somehow. I considered his question seriously. How was I handling it? Simon, for 15 years, I built a life with someone who turned out to be a stranger. For 15 years, I trusted someone who was willing to betray everything we had together for money and excitement. Do I feel bad about exposing that? No. Do I feel bad about protecting my business and my clients from criminals? Absolutely not. But do you feel bad about what happened to Olivia? I was quiet for a moment. I feel bad that she made the choices she made. I feel bad that she threw away everything we built together. But I don't feel bad about the consequences of her actions. That's pretty cold, Ben. Maybe, but it's also honest. That evening, I was at home in the penthouse, which felt enormous and empty without Olivia's presence, when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and very few people had access to the building. I opened the door to find Eloise Hendricks standing in the hallway, looking nervous and uncomfortable. Ben, I'm sorry to bother you at home. I was hoping we could talk. About what? About Olivia. I considered turning her away, but curiosity got the better of me. I let her in and poured 2 glasses of wine. What about Olivia? She's not doing well, Ben. She's staying with her sister, but she's barely eating, barely sleeping. She's completely devastated. Eloise, Olivia made her choices. She has to live with the consequences. I know that. But Ben, she loves you. She made terrible mistakes, but she loves you. I looked at Eloise carefully. Why are you here, really? Because I feel guilty. About what? Eloise took a large sip of wine before answering. Because I knew what Grant was doing, and I didn't stop it. Because I suspected Olivia was involved, and I didn't warn her. Because I let my best friend destroy her life, and I did nothing. What could you have done? I could have told Morrison about Grant months ago. I could have warned Olivia that Grant was using her. I could have prevented all of this. Why didn't you? Because I was scared. Grant Turner was a powerful man at Morrison. I didn't think anyone would believe me without proof, and I didn't want to risk my own career. I understood that reasoning, even if I didn't agree with it. Eloise, what do you want from me? I want you to talk to Olivia. I want you to give her a chance to explain, to apologize, to try to make things right. There's nothing to make right. Our marriage is over. Ben, please. She's talking about hurting herself. That got my attention. Despite everything that had happened, I didn't want Olivia to harm herself. What do you mean? She feels like she's lost everything. Her career, her marriage, her reputation. She feels like there's nothing left. I was quiet for a long moment, thinking about the woman I'd been married to for 15 years, the woman who'd betrayed me, but who was still, in some ways, the most important person in my life. Eloise, I'll think about it, but I'm not making any promises. After she left, I stood on my balcony looking out at the Boston skyline, thinking about Olivia, about Grant Turner, about the choices we all make and the prices we pay for them. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Ben, it's Olivia. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to see you. Please. There are things I need to tell you, things you don't understand. I'll be at our old coffee shop on Newberry Street tomorrow at 2 p.m. Please come. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. But the next afternoon, I found myself walking into the small coffee shop where Olivia and I had had our first date 16 years ago. She was sitting in the corner booth, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual designer clothes. She looked thin, tired, older than her 39 years. Ben, thank you for coming. I sat down across from her without ordering anything. What do you want, Olivia? I want to explain. I want you to understand what really happened. I understand perfectly. You had an affair with Grant Turner and helped him steal from your company. It wasn't like that. Not at first. Then what was it like? She took a shaky breath. Ben, do you remember 2 years ago, when Morrison was going through layoffs? When I was worried about losing my job? Yes. Grant approached me then. He said he could protect my position, but he needed favors. Small things at first, just information about which accounts were struggling, which clients were unhappy. He said it was to help the company make better strategic decisions. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him. I was scared, Ben. I was 40 years old in an industry that worships youth, working for a company that was cutting staff. Grant offered me security. When did it become personal? Gradually. He started taking me to client dinners, including me in high-level meetings, making me feel important. And he was charming, Ben. He made me feel attractive, desirable, valued. Things I wasn't doing? She looked down at her hands. Things I didn't think you were doing anymore. So you decided to have an affair. I didn't decide anything. It just happened. And once it started, Grant had leverage over me. He said if I tried to end things, he'd tell you about the affair and tell Morrison that I'd been leaking information. So he was blackmailing you? In a way, yes. But Ben, I have to be honest. Part of me didn't want it to end. Grant made me feel things I hadn't felt in years. I looked at my wife across the small table, and I realized that I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no love, just emptiness. Olivia, why are you telling me this now? Because I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. Because I want you to know that what we had was real, even if I lost sight of it. And because I want to ask for your forgiveness. My forgiveness? Ben, I know I don't deserve it. I know I destroyed everything we built together. But I love you, and I'm hoping that maybe, somehow, we can find a way to rebuild. I was quiet for a long moment, looking at this woman who had shared my life for 15 years, who had betrayed me completely, who was now asking for a second chance. Olivia, do you know what the hardest part of all this has been for me? What? It's not the affair. It's not even the corporate espionage. It's the realization that I never really knew you at all. The woman I married, the woman I loved, would never have done what you did. Which means either you were never that person, or you stopped being that person somewhere along the way. Tears started running down her cheeks. Ben, people make mistakes. People can change. You're right, but some changes are permanent. Some mistakes can't be fixed. I stood up to leave. Ben, please, don't give up on us. I looked down at her one last time. Olivia, I gave up on us the day you chose Grant Turner over our marriage. Everything that happened after that was just the consequences playing out. I walked out of the coffee shop and into the afternoon sunshine, leaving my wife, my ex-wife, sitting alone in the booth where we'd fallen in love 16 years earlier. It was time to close this chapter of my life and move on to whatever came next. The war was over. I had won. But victory, I was learning, sometimes felt a lot like loss. 6 months later, I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when Rhea knocked on my door with an expression I'd learned to recognize. Trouble was coming. Ben, you have a call. Grant Turner. I stared at her. Grant Turner is in federal prison. Apparently, he gets phone privileges. He says it's important. I considered hanging up before even taking the call, but curiosity won. I picked up the phone. This is Ben Carter. Ben. Grant's voice sounded different, smaller, defeated. Thank you for taking my call. What do you want, Grant? I want to talk to you, face to face. That's not going to happen. Ben, please. There are things you need to know, things about Olivia, about what really happened. I know everything I need to know. No, you don't. Ben, I'm going to be in prison for the next 15 years. I have nothing to gain by lying to you now. But there are things that might change how you see what happened. I was quiet for a moment. Grant Turner had destroyed my marriage and tried to destroy my business. What could he possibly tell me that would matter now? You have 5 minutes. Not on the phone. This needs to be in person. Grant, I'm not visiting you in prison. I'm not in prison yet. I'm in the federal holding facility downtown, awaiting sentencing. You can visit during regular hours. Why would I want to do that? Because if you don't, you're going to spend the rest of your life wondering what really happened. And Ben, you deserve to know the truth. 2 days later, I found myself in a sterile visiting room at the federal detention center, waiting for the man who had destroyed my marriage. When Grant appeared, I barely recognized him. The confident executive was gone, replaced by a thin, pale man in an orange jumpsuit. Ben, thank you for coming. Talk. Grant sat down across from me, separated by a thick glass partition. We spoke through phones like in a movie. Ben, I need you to know that everything I'm about to tell you is the truth. I have no reason to lie anymore. Get to the point. The corporate espionage operation. It wasn't my idea. I stared at him. What? It was Olivia's idea, all of it. That's impossible. Ben, your wife is brilliant, much more brilliant than either of us gave her credit for. She approached me 18 months ago with a plan to steal client information and sell it to competitors. She had identified the vulnerabilities in Morrison's security systems. She had mapped out which clients had the most valuable information, and she had calculated exactly how much money we could make. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. You're lying. I'm not lying, Ben. Olivia seduced me, not the other way around. She made me believe it was my idea, that I was the mastermind. But she was controlling everything from the beginning. Why should I believe you? Grant reached into his pocket and pulled out a small digital recorder. Because I recorded some of our conversations. I was paranoid about getting caught, so I kept evidence that would implicate her if things went bad. He pressed play, and I heard Olivia's voice, clear and unmistakable. Grant, you need to understand something. Ben thinks he's so smart, but he has no idea what I'm capable of. He sees me as his pretty little wife who needs protection. He has no idea that I've been planning this for over a year. Grant's voice on the recording. What if he finds out? Olivia. He won't find out because he doesn't want to find out. Ben lives in a fantasy world where I'm the perfect wife and he's the brilliant protector. Even if he sees evidence, he'll find a way to rationalize it because the truth would destroy his self-image. Grant. And if he does figure it out? Olivia. Then we disappear with the money and Ben can spend the rest of his life wondering what hit him. Grant stopped the recording. I sat in stunned silence. There's more, Ben. Hours of recordings where Olivia talks about manipulating you, about using your love for her against you, about how easy it was to make you believe she was the victim. Why are you telling me this now? Because Olivia threw me under the bus the moment things went bad. She convinced the FBI that I was the mastermind, that she was just a naive woman who got caught up in something she didn't understand. She let me take the fall for everything while she walked away with minimal consequences. I thought about my conversation with Agent Chen, about how they'd decided Olivia was more victim than perpetrator. She played everyone, Ben. The FBI, Morrison's executives, even you. She's probably the smartest criminal I've ever met. If this is true, why didn't you expose her? Because I loved her, or I thought I did. Even after she betrayed me, I couldn't bring myself to destroy her completely. Grant laughed bitterly. Pretty pathetic, right? I looked at this broken man across from me and realized that we'd both been played by the same woman, Grant. Why are you telling me this now? Because I heard she's been trying to reconcile with you. Because I heard she's been playing the repentant wife, asking for forgiveness. And because I think you deserve to know who you're really dealing with. I left the detention center feeling like my entire world had shifted. Everything I thought I knew about the last 2 years was wrong. Olivia hadn't been seduced by Grant Turner. She had seduced him. She hadn't been manipulated into corporate espionage. She had been the architect of the entire operation, and she had played me perfectly, letting me believe I was the brilliant detective who had uncovered her crimes, when in reality, she had probably wanted me to find out. She had used my discovery of her affair as cover for her real crimes, making herself look like an unfaithful wife instead of a criminal mastermind. I drove home to the penthouse, my mind racing. If Grant was telling the truth, then Olivia was still out there, still dangerous, still playing games, and she was probably planning her next move. I called Simon. Simon, I need you to do something for me. I need you to find out everything about what Olivia has been doing for the past 6 months. Ben, I thought you were done with all that. I thought I was too, but I just learned some things that change everything. What kind of things? The kind that suggest my ex-wife is a lot more dangerous than we realized. Simon's investigation took 3 days. When he came to my office with his report, his expression was grim. Ben, you're not going to like this. Tell me. Olivia hasn't been living with her sister in Cambridge. She's been living in a luxury apartment in Back Bay, paying rent with money from an offshore account we never found. What offshore account? Apparently, she had a separate operation running parallel to the one with Grant Turner. She was selling information to different buyers, keeping the profits for herself. How much money? At least $2 million. Maybe more. I stared at Simon in disbelief. She's been running her own espionage operation this entire time? It gets worse, Ben. She's been using her connections in the PR world to gather information about companies that are planning mergers, acquisitions, or major strategic changes. She's essentially become a freelance corporate spy. What else? She's been in contact with several of your former clients, offering them consulting services on cybersecurity. She's been using information about your business practices to undercut your bids and steal your clients. I felt rage building in my chest. Even after everything that had happened, Olivia was still trying to destroy my business. Simon, I want you to trace every penny of that offshore money. I want to know every client she's contacted, every piece of information she's stolen, every law she's broken. Ben, what are you planning? I looked out my office window at the Boston skyline, thinking about the woman I'd been married to for 15 years, the woman who had played me for a fool, the woman who was still out there trying to destroy everything I'd built. I'm planning to finish what we started. The final confrontation came 2 weeks later. I'd arranged to meet Olivia at the rooftop bar of the Prudential Tower, ostensibly to discuss finalizing our divorce. She arrived looking beautiful as always, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people made in a month. Ben, thank you for agreeing to meet. I've been hoping we could talk. We need to talk, Olivia, about a lot of things. We sat at a table overlooking the city, the lights of Boston spread out below us like a circuit board. Ben, I know you're angry with me. I know I hurt you. But I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. Really? Is that why you've been trying to steal my clients? Her expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. I don't know what you mean. Olivia, I know about the offshore accounts. I know about your freelance espionage operation. I know about the $2 million you've stolen over the past 18 months. She was quiet for a moment, then smiled. You always were good at your job, Ben. I also know that the entire operation with Grant Turner was your idea. I know you seduced him, manipulated him, and then threw him under the bus when things went bad. Did Grant tell you that? Poor Grant. Even in prison, he's still trying to protect me. So it's true? Olivia leaned back in her chair, and for the first time since I'd known her, I saw her real face. No masks, no pretense, just cold calculation. Ben, Do you want to know the truth? The real truth? Yes. I stopped loving you 5 years ago. Maybe longer. You became boring, predictable, safe. You were so focused on building your little security company that you forgot to pay attention to your wife. So you decided to destroy me? I decided to build my own life. A life where I was in control, where I made the decisions, where I had the power. By stealing from your clients? By using the resources available to me. Ben, you taught me everything I know about cybersecurity. You showed me how vulnerable these companies are, how easy it is to access their information, how much that information is worth. I stared at this woman who had shared my bed for 15 years, and I realized I was looking at a complete stranger. The affair with Grant was just cover. The affair with Grant was fun. But yes, it was also useful. I needed someone inside Morrison to help me access the really valuable information, and I needed someone to take the fall if things went wrong. And me? What was I? You were my safety net, my respectable husband with the successful business, my cover story, my alibi. You were so trusting, so devoted, so easy to manipulate. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Olivia, you made one critical mistake. What's that? You underestimated me. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. It displayed a recording app that had been running for the past 20 minutes. Everything you just said has been recorded and automatically uploaded to a secure server. Copies are being sent to the FBI, the SEC, and the Massachusetts Attorney General's office as we speak. Her face went white. Ben, you can't. I can, and I did. Olivia, you're under arrest. On cue, FBI agents appeared from the stairwell, led by Agent Chen. Olivia Carter, you're under arrest for corporate espionage, wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. As they handcuffed her, Olivia looked at me with pure hatred in her eyes. You think you've won, Ben? You think this is over? I know it's over. This will destroy you too. When this comes out, when people learn that you were married to me for 15 years and never suspected anything, your reputation will be ruined. No one will trust you to protect their information if you couldn't even protect your own marriage. I smiled at her, and it was the coldest smile of my life. Olivia, I've already thought of that. Tomorrow morning, every major news outlet in Boston will receive a detailed account of how I uncovered and exposed the largest corporate espionage ring in Massachusetts history. The story will focus on my brilliant detective work, my dedication to justice, and my willingness to sacrifice my own marriage to protect my clients. Her eyes widened as she realized what I'd done. The narrative isn't going to be about the cybersecurity expert who was fooled by his wife. It's going to be about the cybersecurity expert who was so dedicated to justice that he destroyed his own wife to protect his clients. As the FBI agents led her away, Olivia turned back one last time. I underestimated you, Ben. I won't make that mistake again. You won't get the chance. I watched from the rooftop as they put her in the back of a federal vehicle and drove away into the Boston night. Then I stood alone at the railing, looking out at the city lights, thinking about the past 2 years, about the games people play, about the prices we pay for trust and betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from Simon. It's done. The story breaks in tomorrow's Globe. You're going to be famous. I typed back, good. Send me the final numbers on Olivia's offshore accounts. $2.7 million recovered, all being returned to the affected companies. I put my phone away and took one last look at the Boston skyline. Somewhere out there, Grant Turner was sitting in a federal detention cell, probably wondering how his life had gone so wrong. Somewhere else, Olivia was beginning to understand that her games had finally caught up with her. And here I was, standing on top of the world, having destroyed the 2 people who had tried to destroy me. I'd won. Completely. Utterly. Permanently. But as I walked toward the elevator, I realized something that surprised me. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no joy, just emptiness. Maybe that was the real price of victory. Maybe when you fight monsters, you risk becoming one yourself. Or maybe I'd always been a monster, and it had just taken the right circumstances to bring it out. Either way, the game was over. I'd changed the password on my life, and Olivia Carter no longer had access. Game over.